Welcome back, everyone, to the Moderately Educated News Network. I am joined tonight by my lovely co-host, Stefan Jones. And today we'll be discussing literacy rates. Look at me struggling with my literacy. Literacy statistics as of 2025, and some statistics that are just quite frankly appalling. For those of you that don't know that word, that are fellowly illiterate, that means it is bad, all right? It is shockingly bad. So, without further ado, we'll move on to some of the statistics. Um, so approximately 80% of all US adults are literate as of 2024. 80%. That's it. That's a shocking number. Four-fifths. But that being said, 21% are considered illiterate, and 54% of literate adults read below or have literacy below a sixth grade level. Middle schoolers. I don't know what is that? Like maybe 12, 11, 12 years old? That's the level of reading comprehension that people have in the nation today, which leads me to, question about um who's doing the voting, why, and people's opinions out there and stuff.
This
A
guy.
lot of it's starting to make a little bit more sense to me. So it's estimated that low levels of literacy cost the US up to $2.2 trillion per year, and about 34% of adults lacking literacy proficiency were born outside of the US. This is somewhat to be expected, right? Immigrants that maybe English wasn't their first language, you would expect higher rates of illiteracy among this population. Massachusetts was the state with the highest literacy for children, and then New Mexico was the state with the lowest child literacy rate. New Hampshire was the state with the highest percentage of adults considered literate, while the lowest state of adult literacy was California. The U.S.
I'm
overall rates 36 in literacy with in the world, which is like kind of shocking. And yeah, I think that's kind of my general spill. Those are a little bit about the numbers. Stefano, I'll pass it off to you for initial thoughts. What's going on here?
so, whoever made Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? They were onto something, and they might have seen these statistics because, yeah, it looks like, half of you that can read have that four and five. Mm-mm-mm. It looks like you might be barely smarter than a fifth grader. And yeah, we kind of got to get into this, right? So, realistically, the stats are kind of appalling. It does kind of make us need to reassess our education system and what's really going on there because you guys need to put down TikTok and pick up a book. I remember back in my freaking day in the summer. Oh man, my mom wasn't taking us nowhere unless we finished a freaking book and wrote a book report. Y'all need that, bro. Y'all need that expeditiously. My mom had my baby sister on ABC Mouse. My baby sister could read at a college level by the time she was in fifth grade. So, I don't know if you guys need to do ABC Mouse. I'm not quite sure entirely what's going on, but this is absolutely unacceptable from a first world country. I understand that some immigrants may skew the numbers. I mean, you go into Walmart, you hear everybody freaking speaking Spanish, especially if you're in the South. It's okay. I get it. But yeah, California, I'm not surprised either. I wouldn't actually be surprised if the states where marijuana is legalized, if the literacy rate was lower, I would not be surprised at all. So California being the absolute lowest and them having homelessness issues, so on and so forth, I'm not surprised. I kind of want to see the whole list of all states to kind of know where everybody ranks. But yeah, absolutely embarrassing for sure.
Yeah. So as I previously mentioned, about $2.2 trillion are estimated to have been lost by the US each year due to low literacy rates. And this number comes from an estimation in potential like GDP production when it comes to the levels of earnings that various levels of literacy gain you, right? So the number comes from literacy level three, which is minimum proficiency. They earn about 63,000 plus per year, whereas level two can earn about 48,000, and level zero and one earn barely above poverty, if I don't even think that's above the poverty line. So that being said, levels of literacy give you access to more opportunities. They allow people to engage in society at higher and higher levels along the like skill tree or value adding positions in the economy. And so that's kind of where that 2.2 trillion comes in. Not necessarily that America's losing, X amount of tax revenue or but it's an estimation of potentially where GDP could be if everybody was at a minimum proficiency level. But that being said, um, yeah, nah, it is a big issue. I would also be interested. I'll do some Googling real quick to see if I can't find that full list because let's see. Um, I'll share my screen while I Google this. That way we can all follow along. Share screen. Replace current share. Thank you. We'll go here. So what are we doing? We're doing ranking states by literacy
So
level.
if California is the lowest, guys, and they're like the most liberal state, I wonder who else is going to be at the bottom. I mean, frick.
So it looks like New Hampshire is, oh, here we go. We got a fun little map.
Those are low
Um,
population states too. New Hampshire, the Dakotas, so on and so forth.
Literacy rate, high school completion rate. Okay.
Oh,
College
I know
enrollment
all
per
of it.
capita.
Wait, go to California real quick. Oh, frick. Oh, no. Dang,
50.
ranked 50th in high school completion rate? That's terrible. College.
I'd have to look at when this data is from. But yep, those look like the current numbers. Um, so that being said, with our with these numbers and all this in mind, how do you think we tackle this problem? How do you think that we could solve literacy in in these areas?
We need to go back to really how things were when we were in school, right? Because I can guarantee the literacy rates were probably a bit higher back then. But we need to go ahead, put down the phones. We need to stop being so reliant, hyper reliant, I'd venture to say, on uh, AI and social media and everything. And people just need to go back to actually reading and opening books. The best way for you to get better at something is to do it. So the more you read and write, the better you will be at reading and writing. The more you open a dictionary and learn words, the better your, diction and word choice will be. And yeah, I mean, they used to teach cursive in school. So you were getting kind of dual literacy. Like you'd have to learn to read and write and, just proper regular English and then have to write in cursive. It's kind of a joke, but I mean, look, I'd venture to say everybody that can write cursive might be just a little bit more literate than those who cannot. So.
I would not venture to say that at all.
I
Because
mean, because everybody who learned how to write cursive would be from basically our time or before. So I'd venture to say the literacy rates were a lot higher before the internet age and the age of social media and so on and so forth. Whenever that stuff was early adopting, right? I feel like everybody could read because instead of you having all this entertainment right in your face, right? Your entertainment was reading a freaking book or learning something, which is absolutely crazy. But I mean, I feel like that's true.
yeah, I would not say that's true in mass. Like I would say I would venture to say that because the numbers that we just saw was adult literacy. There was a couple mentions of child literacy, but 54% of adults, us, read below a sixth grade level. Now, we wouldn't know about the younger generation that grew up largely with technology unless we compared child literacy rates to child literacy rates. Which what I can maybe attempt to do here. I don't know. I kind of want to do year by year,
Young
but
adults factor into the numbers though.
you
So
said
those
what?
I said young adults factor into those numbers though. So we're in 2025. If you think about it, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, you have those COVID kids, 14 to 18. Let's say they can't necessarily read that well. I mean, they're still considered adults, anybody over the age of 18, but
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, so okay. Yeah, I get you. So for me, what I would say, potential solutions, I think for it's not as easy as telling people to read more, because if they felt pressure, if they felt the need to develop their reading skills, they would do so. Unfortunately, there's no pressure or incentive to develop these skills at this point. So, how do we solve it? We got to solve it earlier down the line at childhood. I think that ways that you could do this is, yep, not relying on technology as much, sitting down with kids, getting parents more involved in a child's education, um, for one. So
I don't
that's,
think that's feasible because parents don't, a lot of them don't care.
yeah, so we could hopefully find ways to incentivize that. But that would be solution number one. Getting parents more involved in the educational system, for one. Like your mom did, whether that's reading with your kids, sitting down, mandatory book time, whatever the hell, limiting screen time, things like that. Those are all positive things that we can do to encourage literacy in our children. Um, and then I would also say the bureaucratization, bureaucrat. Anyway, including larger bureaucracies in schools, more the emphasis, placing more emphasis on bureaucracy and shifting that load from teachers so that teachers can focus on teaching, I think it would be a phenomenal way to allow students to learn more. I know that there was a program and study done out of India where there was a TED Talk done on this where schools there were largely daycare centers. Teachers had a large number of bureaucratic, janitorial, and other like things that they had to tend to and rarely had time to actually teach new material. So just shifting, like building an infrastructure for allowing teachers to be successful and shifting the public perception of teachers to this high esteemed position where they're well respected and things, paying them livable wages and all of that, where you make teachers the pinnacle of society. I think all work to make the educational system better and allow like more opportunities for kids. Those are probably the
I,
two just off the top of my head that I would implement to
I
hopefully
will
respond.
say though, the teacher wage argument, it's a little bit dated because it definitely varies from state to state. There's actually studies that come out and say that teachers essentially over their lifespan will make the same as a doctor because all the debt that the doctor incurs and so on and so forth. So, and I know some teachers personally that are getting paid 80K. They work, maybe 8 months out of the year. They have 4 months off with all the different breaks, summer breaks, so on and so forth. Which is not to discount anything that they're doing, but if you're making 80K through 66% of the year, you definitely have the ability to be an even higher income earner later on. And that's not even including the fact that they'll get raises throughout their tenure as well. But once again, that varies by state. That's specifically anecdotal experience that I have from teachers that I know in Texas, also in Florida, and other states like Louisiana, Mississippi. I heard they get paid extremely, extremely low. And obviously, it varies by school district as well. Now, the issue with some of the implementation of the things that you said is like you're saying incentivize the parents to do this, or we try to get more uh you said bureaucratization or bureaucracy involved in schools to try to mandate certain things. I think one of the easiest things to do would kind of be what Florida did recently, banning social media until a certain age. I feel like that would kind of help kids. And honestly, you need to potentially just ban phones from schools like altogether, unless it's like for emergencies. I know that's like it sounds like a lot of control, but it's like at the end of the day, if a kid does not have access to their phone to try to get Chat GPT to write a paper for them or to try to outsource and get information, and they have to actually get it themselves. They can't look up Spark Notes for whatever book they're reading in class. They have to actually read it. Like, I feel like those are all things that would potentially help. So maybe not necessarily taking away the phones entirely, but whenever you walk into class, look, you got to put the phone up. When you leave the class, you get your phone back, unless it's like some sort of emergency, school shooting, fire in the school, so on and so forth. It's just the lack of attention that social media has caused in our kids, and in our adults, frankly, is a huge part of the problem, I would say, as to why we're having these literacy issues in America.
Uh, I would say, I mean, yeah, it would play a part. I don't know if I would say like lack of attention. I mean, I know plenty of people that have attention deficit disorder that suffer constantly from lack of attention, but are high performers in certain areas. I would classify myself as one of those people. I can't focus very long, but I do so in short bursts, but still allows me to perform pretty effectively. So I don't know if attention necessarily is like a huge issue. But in terms of like using technology, right? The Spark Notes, the Chat GPT, and all that other good stuff, um, to complete coursework, in this automatic means, it doesn't, you're not incentivized to learn, you're incentivized to memorize and get a grade. I heard this idea that the American education system, oh, I actually forget the quote. There's another funny quote. But the American education system was made to produce efficient workers, not efficient thinkers. So,
That's true.
I think and the quote went something along the lines like, if you look in modern day America, we've shifted away from the only medieval thing you'll find is our education system or something like that, which is hilarious. But I think that we need to find ways to inspire curiosity and lifelong learners. I would encourage an adoption of like a Finnish model from Finland, that is those Finns. So where they incentivize learning, hands-on projects, collaboration, a lot of these things, and it's a large shift away from standardized testing. There's not a lot of emphasis placed on a grade per se. It's more so the application of knowledge. And I think finding ways that we can kind of shift our education system in that direction, whether it's just like more projects, more group work, which I know everybody hates, but it's we got to find a way to navigate this to where we encourage thinkers and people that enjoy learning. That way, even if you do learn how to read in the sixth grade, it doesn't stop there. You continue to refine skills because learning should be lifelong. Um,
Yeah.
Real quick, just for my own sanity, I'm gonna bureaucratization. Okay. See, I was there.
Yeah, yeah, you're there.
That's
You're
just
there.
that's just some syllables. Um, yeah, nah, I would largely, I would kind of say all of the things that I've somewhat said, like paired together, I think that, and a lack of reliance on phones, I think all these are like great ideas that if we implement in the classroom or find ways to do so, we can definitely boost literacy. We can boost the competency of our workers, of our future citizens. And we wouldn't see, Elon and Vivek talking about, man, we need some more H-1B visas because we don't
Yeah,
have
we
any
need the
competent
smart
workers in the
people over
United States.
there.
Yeah. So
But man, no, I agree, right? And from the standpoint where it's like you need to make teaching more interactive, there are teachers that do that naturally. And the students in those classes, at least when I was growing up, right, they love that teacher. They be like, well, yo, you're my favorite teacher. You helped me so much on this subject, blah, 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 because you made it intuitive, interactive. I had to actually think for myself. It's not just uh put this in front of somebody, this is how you do it. Like I read an article probably a couple months ago. It said the issue with teaching, right, is that when students come back from summer vacation or whatever, they lost like 50% in terms of retention of what they had learned the previous year. And then that first semester is teachers getting them caught up. And then the second semester is basically them trying to sustain and then grow from there. And then rinse and repeat every year. So that is kind of a recurrent issue. But if you're talking about moving away from standardized testing, what you have to actually look at as well is what KPIs are the teachers going to be graded by? And will you start doing student surveys, parent surveys as KPIs to see if the child's enjoying the class, is learning intuitive? Do they actually have to think? Is that something that could be implemented to basically hold teachers accountable to actually caring more about their kids' education? What do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. There does need to be some form of performance indicator there. So what I would say is, you can do this through the coursework, especially if like if you're doing individual projects or things of that nature where there are there's some theory that's being applied. I think that in and of itself will demonstrate understanding to some degree, and you can kind of gauge, students' results on this. Of course, like there may be like teachers could be incentivized to lie about student grades, but aren't they already? Because even with standardized testing, you could be like, oh, here are some answers. I remember back in the day, I think it was I had a teacher. She like handed out the previous year star exam and was like, go through and just memorize this shit because it's like largely the same. Because she wanted us to get good grades on our standardized exams, and it was I think it
That
was like
doesn't help you retain the friggin' information.
exactly. So I mean,
That's why LeBron James is always on the first page of every book he reads in the freaking media. When he's holding the book,
yeah,
look, every time he on that first page.
there
He's
you
my
go.
favorite player, but I promise you that man probably cannot read beyond a sixth grade level.
There you go. So, nah, I yeah, there are those are like really complex questions that I'll be honest, probably need to get SMEs to answer because I don't know the inner workings of how to educate children. I don't know what it's like to be a teacher. I don't know. I mean, there are how to get children involved, or sorry, parents involved in their child's education. These are really difficult questions that quite frankly, I don't have an answer to. I think I have like decent high level ideas, but definitely need further fleshing out. I know just taking notes on a lot of the topics that we discussed earlier about literacy. Some of the questions I asked was how can we encourage parents to be more active? How can we raise slash afford like more school positions to pay teachers more and like have more specialized delineation between faculty duties and like actual education? And then what role does good technology play in child success? These are all really important questions that like neither one of us are qualified to answer or really like so
I have an idea though, it just popped up in my head.
go for it. What is it?
So why don't we make education capitalistic, right? And let's create more freedom of choice. So the way you get parents involved is you make an app that basically teachers and parents can communicate through called uh,
Yep.
P coursework,
Okay.
right? Parent coursework, P coursework. That's just like a pseudo name just to kind of come up with something, right? So the P coursework app will basically allow teachers to have options of how their students' homework would be for whatever the subject is. Because people learn obviously in three different ways. You have the visual people, the auditory, the kinesthetic people. So because of this, the parent would be able to choose which basically form of coursework would their student excel in the most or their child excel in the most, and then the teacher can kind of do or work from there to where they have like three bases based on those three subjects, and then have hybrid like things in between them. And I guess that could be a way where parents could be more involved because parents will look at an app. I mean, it's like, look, your kid is struggling. Look, well, here are the options. We can have them do more. group hands-on work in regards to this subject. We can have them read more and do more visual stuff, look at more articles, denotations, blah, blah, blah. Or they can listen to it via audio or like just something. I think it's not a terrible idea though.
Yeah, I think using technology to bridge that gap is probably appropriate, but once you start asking teachers to start making additional coursework outside of like the lectures and whatever else they already have to give, we're either gonna need to hire more people, um, pay them more for their additional time, or there's got to be some give to the system because I know a lot of teachers that are already overworked, overburdened, and quite frankly don't have the bandwidth to do any more than they're already doing. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I like the idea, but in terms of like I said, when it comes to affording different school positions, hiring more teachers,
And
there's
that's
gonna
where there
be
needs to be teacher collaboration where on specific subjects, right? If you're worried about, people are always so worried about their specific school's grading system or whatever, but if you eliminate standardized testing and you go this route, then teachers can collaborate. One teacher can make visual coursework dedicated towards kids who learn more visually. One teacher can make auditory coursework towards those who learn that way. And then one teacher can make more hands-on coursework and they can all collaborate and share that coursework. And if it's efficient and effective, I don't see why it couldn't be shared. I mean, and then everybody kind of saves time because every teacher has to basically plan and prep for the year anyway. I actually feel like that would actually save them a lot of time if they had multiple options to choose from to be able to teach their students. And then as far as homework, coursework, it just gives them more options, which at the end of the day will help the student in a education capitalistic sense. So.
yeah. Um,
Because if you eliminate standardized testing, once again, it's not really about the school scores, right? It's more about um basically student and parent satisfaction at that point.
yeah, I don't know if it's just satisfaction there, but I would say, I mean, if you're already doing like some sort of planning, you're adhering to some level of overarching curriculum that you're adhering to. It's to create additional coursework on the side. And I hear you where like teachers can collaborate and there's like this network of shared information. Um, we got to build an infrastructure for that. We've got to build an app. We've got to build like coursework that's certified by teachers for teachers and X, Y, and Z at different grade levels. Um, it all has to be like verified and vetted to make sure that it's adhering to whatever policies that they already planned for. So yeah, they're already doing the work, but there's a whole layer of infrastructure there where because the teachers themselves aren't going to go upload that information to the app. I feel like at some point you're putting way too much on an individual teacher.
I mean, but there's so much stuff that's on like what like Canvas, Quizlet, and you can even attest to this. Some college professors will literally steal basically uh course info or work off of that and then put it on a freaking exam and it'll be word for word, bar for bar. Like we can both acknowledge that that's something that occurred, right?
Yeah.
Because if teachers are doing that, then if you can do that in a non-standardized testing way, that would help numerous students to where like you have teachers who already have a certain way that they teach and they really impact their kids rather than just the regular standard like I'm not really trying to be here but I'm gonna tell you this and this teacher, right? If you get the teachers who love their job and they can share their curriculum and what they teach to their students, their lesson plans with other teachers, I think it would be good for everybody. And once again, that teacher was already going to make that lesson plan. So it's not extra work for them. They have the ability to share it as long as it meets all the standards and regulations, right? Like you said. And that would be a state by state basis. But
Yeah, I just
technically
feel
district
like
by
you're
district
reinventing
basis.
Quizlet at that point, though,
Not necessarily if you break it down in more of a visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and like more hands-on, like you have more than one area that you're attacking instead of just see answer, speak answer. It wouldn't be like that.
for
It'd be
sure.
deeper.
But alrighty, we got about a minute left. I'll let you say any final thoughts and send us off.
Guys, I think P coursework could be a potential Shark Tank idea. Please don't steal it. If you do, I will hunt you down in the comments and cause you great pain. That being said, guys, thank you for tuning back into the Moderately Educated News Network. We appreciate you for your viewership, and if you would be so kind to do so, please like and subscribe if you feel like you learned something. And we love you, appreciate you, and peace.